Hey y'all, this is Stephanie with Energy Aligns. Welcome to my Tarot Insight. I'm an energetic intuitive, and every week I show up here to pull one tarot card that highlights and harnesses the energy of the collective. I then talk about how we can utilize the energy to drop into deeper awareness with ourselves and as participants in the collective. So let's get going here. So this card I pulled is for May, like 20th, 21st, 22nd, 24th. So this week, the card for the collective energy is the Five of Fire, Struggle. So I always recommend you pause the video if you want to drop into your own intuition with this card. So we've been pulling a lot of major arcana cards. Now here we are, we have a minor arcana. What does that mean in the tarot? So major arcana cards are 0 through 21 in the tarot deck. And each one of them represents a very big growth, very big themes and big cycles that we're moving through as a collective, or if you're pulling cards for individuals. So in the minor arcana, we have the themes of mental, emotional, spiritual, and physical. And these show up in the cards as fire, water, air, and earth, so the elements, or swords, pentacles, wands, cups. Some decks are different. So the fire in this deck is in regards to the spiritual aspect of ourselves. So the spiritual aspect of the collective here. Last week I spoke at the end of the Tarot Insight about the spiritual aspect of our lives and how we are really being asked now, especially in these times, to adopt and integrate and wake up to the fact that we are primarily, and first and foremost, spiritual beings. It is just part of who we are, right? It is part of our growth. It's part of our systems, just like our energy system, our physical system, our mental system, and our emotional system. So we have a spiritual system. We are being asked to interact with the spiritual side of not only ourselves, but of all that exists, right? All that is. So we focus so much for so long only in what we can see with our eyes and what we can hear and what we can feel tactically, right? Tactically, or with our hands. And if you think about it, it's only really in the last 5 or so decades that we've really dove in to even how we feel emotionally as beings, right? With exploration and expansion of all the modalities to understand our emotional selves, right? All of the types of therapies, breath work, all the modalities that we see now that have to do with like self-help and healing on an emotional level, and that help with discovering who we are, et cetera, right? So now we're being asked to dive in to our spiritual selves, to explore this side of our beings. It's just as much a part of us as our emotional body and our mental body and our physical body. Right now, we're just in a time of evolution for all of us as humans, especially the evolution and the exploration of this part of ourselves. It's really cool, and it's time for us to really explore the spiritual aspects of ourselves. And this has been my main message in all of our Tarot Insights together, that basically, how do we stop and take the time to go within? So this Five of Fire card says that we're really in these crunchy times now. It's called struggle. People are longing for this. People are asking for this on the extreme. So if you look at what's happening now, at least in the United States of America, there is a pull and a push to reintegrate the church and state, right? This separation, this is something that we've held on to, that we've believed that everybody should have access to their own personal faith and personal private beliefs, and to believe what, people want to believe on a religious and faith and spiritual journey, right? Now it is being reintroduced as something we must do, we must believe, and this is the extreme of these times, right? This is kind of this extreme of this card. But I am going to say here to all of you that are on a spiritual path, because we're all on a spiritual path. We're all being asked to wake up to our spiritual side and to explore this. And the way that we do this is to take that quiet time and go within So it's very personal for each and every one of us. This is the cool part about it. And so the 5 of fire is the middle of the cycle of fire. There's a cycle of 0 through 10, or actually 1 through 10 in the tarot, and these minor arcana cards. And the middle is the 5. So as we pass through the 5, we're going through the middle of this cycle of spiritual awakening. We're going into the real question here. We've been led up to this moment here. What does it mean to be spiritual? What does it mean to have faith? What does it mean to pray or to find belief and trust and surrender in all the things we cannot see, that we have faith in, and that we really know to be true within ourselves? What we have faith in, that we can rely on, that we cannot explain with our minds. That is what spirit is about. This is what spirituality is about. And it's a very, very, very personal experience. You experiencing your spirit, you experiencing a relationship with all that is, with something bigger than you. Whether you call it God or goddesses or the universe or all that is, whatever you term it to be, just, it could just be spirit, right? That's a good word for it. Okay, so this card is called the struggle, because here we all are saying, so like, what do we do? Because this is not a cookie cutter framework, spirituality. This is not just organized religion that works that one way only, right? That certain way and with certain rules, and that may work for a lot of people. But as you know, within each organized religion, there's nuance. There is a deep relationship that each individual has to have with themselves and spirit, themselves and God, right? So in these organized religions, it's not perfect either. It's not a perfect map. Now we're being asked to dive into this as a collective and have these conversations. And that means that each and every one of us has to step up and take responsibility as individuals. And it's hard because we've really never been encouraged or had encouragement in this area, had an offering or an invitation to do this in our culture and in our bigger culture, really. And we've been asked really just to kind of follow along or do this or do that, and you will get this or that. This is something completely different than that, and it's undefinable. So the 5 of fire, that is the struggle here. Look at this card for a second. If you keep going within and in and into the hexagram, which is the shape, it just keeps going and going. It's never ending. And around it, what do you see? Chaos happening. So if we focus as a collective on all that's going on around the reality of our connection with spirit, of our real and true connection, we get confused. If we look in the center and we go within this, we get curious. You see the difference energetically between confusion and curiosity? So when we try to look at everything, we get confused. And when we try to look at just one thing, we often get very curious. This goes for anything, right? Not just for spirituality. For instance, if we don't know what to do for a job, we don't know what we want to do for a career, as an example, we're like, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? And we look at everything and it gets confusing. Then if we hone it in on saying like, what am I good at? Well, I work well with people. Okay. And you say, I'm going to be a teacher. I'm good with people. I'm going to look at that one thing. And then I'm going to get curious about it. What opportunities are there in being a teacher? I could really teach anything. So I could teach children because I'm good with children versus teaching adults. And I could teach math, I could teach science, I could teach meditation, etc., etc. You see, it starts to become a curious exploration. And if you see the difference between these two energies, confusion and curiosity, in these times, it's not just a way to pull ourselves out of the struggle, but it's a way to find clarity in the struggle of our spiritual selves here in the fire. This is the focus. So to focus our attention, to focus our awareness, and also, I've been talking about this in every Tarot Insight, is to take time out and turn the noise off. Not turn it down, but turn it off completely. That's taking a walk in nature. That's having a meditation practice. That's, just watching a movie that makes you laugh. It's honing your focus in on one thing, because right now what is happening is a lot of confusion energy. It's enveloping us, and it will envelop each and every individual if we don't pay attention and choose where our focus is going to be. We have that ability. And it's not to say that you won't be confused and overwhelmed, because it's kind of the nature of what's happening now. For a personal example, in the last kind of 4 or 5 days, I really just allowed myself to get caught up in a lot of stuff that was going on around me and that I was looking at. And I let myself kind of look at everything and be caught up in it. And I noticed that I started to get really confused by like day 3 and into day 4 of it. And I had to come back to my practice of checking in with myself. And I wasn't doing it, on a regular basis during those days. And it really, what ended up happening is that I just became confused. And what ends up happening for all of us in those kind of times, in these times, is that we become confused when we don't hone in our focus and we don't have a practice to come back to. We don't have a touch point, and it's really difficult even to understand that we're even confused in those times when we don't have a touch point. We get disoriented, and then we can't even see the disorientation. We just go along with it, and then we make decisions out of that, and then we have fights out of that place of confusion and disorientation with people or with our lives. And then we get emotional out of that place of confusion and chaos, instead of going, oh, I kind of realized I was getting into this fight because I was confused. And now I know that because I've pulled myself out of it, and I have some clarity around that because I have my touch point. I hope that makes sense, because that's what this card is really, really showing us. So how do we utilize this card? How do we utilize the 5 of fire here, struggle? Well, we're not going to really utilize the energy but what we're going to do is we're going to become more aware of the energy. We're going to become like hyper aware of the crap going on around us, right? It is a bunch of crap. And what is going on internally for us is what matters really the most. So we're going to check back in with ourselves multiple times a day. So the practice with this card, and this is what you can practice in the morning. So you might think that you might not have time in the morning to have quiet moments or quietly check in with yourselves, but you do. We all do. So for example, you wake up, maybe you're jumping right into whatever you have to do, but you always really do have a few moments to sit down or to stop and take some breaths and just quietly check in. And if you feel like you really, really don't, you're like saying this to me right now, I don't have any time. No way, I don't have any time. Then you're just jumping out of the bed, getting in the shower, eating breakfast, and getting in your car, whatever you're doing, whatever your routine is. Here is what you do. When you're in the bathroom, when you're going to the bathroom in the morning, take that 3 seconds to drop in and take a rest. Take a breath, check in with yourself. Or when you're brushing your teeth, you take that time to notice where you are internally. You close your eyes, you brush your teeth, and you notice what's going on within. When you're drinking your coffee, when you're getting into your car, and before you actually start to drive, take those 3 deep breaths and notice what is happening internally. Just checking in. It's just a check-in. Okay, so that's what you're going to do in the morning. Okay, so midday. At midday, we have a big energetic shift in our field, right? Midday, maybe 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, kind of in that time range. There is a big shift here for us energetically. And it's usually after lunch or usually after we've had a break from everything we were doing in the morning up until then. So no matter what your job is, no matter what you do in the midday, the energy shifts in the middle of the day. So again, finding the time to just stop, take 3 deep breaths and notice where you are. So you might notice here that it's different from where you were in the morning, where where can you find yourself? Take some breaths. Is it harder to find yourself in the middle of the day? Sometimes it is than in the morning. All right. So it's just checking in again, touch point. So you are going through the rest of your day, you go home, maybe you work from home, whatever, your kids come home, or maybe you're going to work at that time. Whatever it is for you later in the evening, you're going to check in again. We're talking like 8, 9, 10 o'clock before you go to bed. So you take a shower at night, that's when you're going to close your eyes and check in. And if you don't take a shower, you don't feel like you have the time at night, because it is busy when you lay down before you go to sleep. You can close your eyes before you fall asleep and you're checking back in with yourself. Everybody's doing that, right? Everybody's going to bed. Everyone's laying down and going to sleep at some point at night. Everybody can check in with yourselves. What I'm trying to say is that you have the moments. You have the moments. Okay, so these are 3 very distinct times during the day to touch base with yourself, to check in with yourself with curiosity. The underlying word is curiosity, right? Asking, where am I? What is happening now internally for me? What am I feeling? These are some questions to ask. And you don't have to go into a whole therapy session about it, but you're checking in and you're noticing your energetic space, your internal awareness. And you're noticing it amongst all the chaos and busyness and movement of your life, and where you're finding yourself amongst the chaos and busyness of your life, and you're finding yourself amongst the chaos, busyness, and movement of the greater collective. 2 very, very good places to find yourself, because we're in them all the time. So this is a lot. It's a lot right now, and it's a lot of movement in May. And towards the end of May, which we're getting to, it looks like energetically we're just kind of getting shot into June for the first half of June, and we'll just kind of speed by, and then we'll find ourselves in the middle of the June again and go like, what just happened? So take this momentum and take this time to find yourself. Okay, it's very important to keep your finger on the pulse of who you are and where you are. And of course, that's changing all the time too. And we're changing. We're changing rapidly now. So when we can touch base and have a check-in with ourselves, we can really honor ourselves within all the change and movement that's happening within us, right? Because it's happening outside of us so much. And that's where our eyes are going. That's where our awareness is going. But there's so much internal movement and growth and change happening. So bring your awareness there every once in a while and check in what's happening there. Okay, I'll talk to you all next week. Lots and lots of love and deep awareness. Take good care of yourselves. Bye.